Love you guys. Love everything. Love living this free world and this free life. And love you guys.
Welcome back. This is Louis Repetto, and this is Leaving Scientology. And I'm just going to be walking around Pack Base, which is in Hollywood, and I will be talking about Christmas stuff as I get triggered on it. I will also be answering any questions that anyone has, and then I'll have banners of questions that I have for myself. Thank you for watching, and thanks for watching on the live stream and the replay. All right, so let's begin here. This is actually LRH. This is Catalina Street that we're looking at, and behind me is L. Ron Hubbard Way. Super Pup, yes, hi. Thanks for coming. All right, what's this? Pack it up, Kid Freshie. Exactly, pack it up. I like it. I hope that you make tons of money off that phrase. All right. Yep. Yes, es una secta. I love it. In the streets of LA. So this is Catalina Street, and right behind me in my background, behind my head, is my L. Ron Hubbard Way. This is a picture of that. So I'm just gonna play this so that I can get triggered here. So that's my whole point here, is I want to get triggered while it's going. Okay. I'm getting it to play here. Okay, so it's not playing, but I'll tell you something from my banner while I'm figuring this out in the background. How soon was the Sea Org promoting Christmas activities? What were they, and where were they? Now, let me fix this so that I'm like in the middle here. Okay. So how soon was the Sea Org promoting Christmas activities, and where were they? What were they? So as soon as the IAS event ended, which is in October, normally at the end of October, the Sea Org is within the Sea Org, to me in my org where I worked, which is Ash O'Day, then oh, Jacob Harkey is here, everyone. I actually invited Jacob to come on right now. I'm just gonna close this banner and invite Jacob on here. This is so freaking cool. Okay, let me set up a better screen layout and then add Jacob Harkey. Everyone, Jacob Harkey was filming on Saturday. He was also part of the protest, and he's a Neverin, and he just knows he's very well spoken in regards to the Scientology information, and as well as the court information. He can tell you more about that. I'll add you to the stage. Hello, Jacob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm so glad I could make it tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to pop in too. We'll see how long I'm able to stay, but yeah, as long as I don't get called over by somebody in the family to help out with somebody else, I'm happy to stick around and hang out.
Sweet, that's freaking great. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the comment, Crystal. I see that there. Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, how is my audio right now? Are you hearing me?
It sounds so freaking good.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I'm wearing an AirPod right now, and my audio tends to be weird. I feel like when I put my AirPods in, sometimes my default mic will switch from the microphone that's in front of me to my AirPods mic, which is much lower quality.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to some technical difficulties. I'm also realizing
I do like that microphone.
Yeah, it's
that
a
you're
Shure
using?
SM58. I just got it recently because I knew that I was
Yeah.
interested in starting to stream. Looks like the next thing I need to get is better lights. I'm noticing right now in the dark at
Yeah.
my place, I don't have a great light to keep me
Yeah, it's
well lit, but
difficult to manage the lighting if you don't really have very much spending power. Um,
I'll figure it out. I
but
live and learn.
what
That's how
I
you get
did
there.
was I literally found a couple lights that were like cheap as hell, and I just put them in certain areas, and that's okay for now. I look a little yellowy, but I'm okay for that with that for now. That's not something I need to work on personally.
Yeah, we're all doing our best. We're all making it work. I mean, we all have way more advanced technology than anybody had just even 10 years ago who was able to
Right?
live stream like this.
Yeah, for reals. This is
Hi,
so
Nerman. Thank you
awesome.
for the comment. So, were you
Okay.
live streaming Williams Streets LA audit from that he's posting today, or were you just go looking at an older one? I just popped in
This
about a
is
minute into your
one
stream.
from not today. This is not
Got it.
today.
Got it.
This is
Right
the
on.
last one that he did at L. Ron Hubbard Way. Did you see
Oh,
that
okay.
one? That
I
was
actually
about
didn't
3
catch
days
that one.
ago,
I love that
and
there's so much content coming out of people going to the Scientology locations to do this so regularly. It's this wasn't
yeah,
happening on the regular up until very recently, but that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, and he's, it's been great to actually see this stuff, you know?
Totally.
Yeah,
So I was looking at the title of the video. Were you
go
going to be
ahead.
also talking about some Christmas Scientology stuff from when you were in too?
Yes.
Right on. Oh, there it is. There's Big Blue
Okay.
looking run down in that picture.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So I just figured out how to do this. So what I was gonna do was I was gonna play this video, his last video, before, he got shut down by whoever. And because of, whatever reasons YouTube thinks that he's violating their policies. And then so what do you think about that? Do you know do you have an understanding of what's going on there with him?
I haven't looked into it quite enough to know what specific policies he's been charged with violating. I mean, if I had to
Uh-huh.
guess, I know that Scientology has had a track record of mass reporting posts by people like Leah Remini who tend to share activism and share the truth about Scientology. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Scientology did something like get a bunch of Scientologists to make reports to YouTube that this account was posting religious bigotry and being offensive to Scientologists by engaging in the activity that he's engaging in. If I had to guess, it's probably something like that. But I can't say that I know for sure. That's just my best guess.
I gotcha. What I interpreted from what they said was that it wasn't his content and that it was someone else's content. So what I think maybe Scientology is saying here is this is our people that you're recording and making money off of. This is not like you're not just because you're videoing in public and you're focusing on us as your entertainment, therefore it violates their policy. That's kind of where I thought it was going.
That could be too. Yeah, now that you say that, you definitely may be right about that because I don't know
Yeah,
that
sharing
the
others'
people who
content.
work for the church that he's been including in his streams, I'm sure that they have not agreed to be on those streams. So that could definitely be it. Sharing others'
Yeah,
content. Yeah, I see. That's what people are saying in the chat.
but the thing is about that is they could be right, and I think that's why towards the end, Scientology Auditor had more people talking around him in the last few videos. Did you notice?
Yeah, I would say so. That was
And
kind
that
of what it
made it
seemed like to me
more
too.
see, it seemed more like he was just streaming there and they were talking, and then he happened to record Scientology doing their work.
That could be it. Well, I mean, it seems to me like just about everybody who does work to expose Scientology experiences some degree of fair game,
Yes.
even if that's just being
Hell
asked
yes.
to stop. I'm curious.
Right.
On that topic, have you experienced much fair game activity by Scientology since you've started your YouTube channel?
That's a really good question. Yes, I have, like, pretty serious, actually. The when I left, they didn't tell almost anyone that I had left the Church of Scientology or that I wanted to leave. They didn't even tell anyone that they declared me a suppressive person. They only told a limited number of people, and those people got to see their suppressive person declare, which basically lays out everything, which makes it seem like I'm the worst enemy to them. And so all those people, the people that I ever knew, totally thought that I was the worst person on, Satan, right? So to speak. And then, so ever since then, I've been just, so I feel like that is a fair game. I'm not sure if you think that would be a fair game.
No, I totally see what you're saying there. I'm curious, was that what year was that around?
That was October 3rd, 2013. I was actually
Okay.
right here. What we're looking at right here is
Mhm.
this is the horseshoe area that we're looking at. And then I want to make sure I give commentary as well, so I don't get told I'm sharing others' content too much.
Yeah.
So this is actually where they took all of my stuff, all of my belongings, and they went through my computer and my phone, and they deleted everything. At the time, I didn't have a computer, but I had a mini gaming thing, and I used to use it to get onto the internet. And they had found out about me doing that by going on the internet and stuff. Um, and so they erased that thing, and they erased anything else that I had and gave it back to me. And then I had my one suitcase, and I was in that horseshoe, and they just put me in a car, and then I was gone to St. Louis. That's where I am right now, St. Louis.
So did you leave the Sea Org, and when you left the Sea Org, you were done for good, or was there any time that you spent as a Scientology parishioner, like between after leaving the Sea Org, or what was that like?
I left there. I got sent to live with this guy named Steve Edison. He was also a declared suppressive person, but he was a parishioner. And so then I got sent to live there with him. I stayed in his basement, and I paid him like a monthly amount and stuff. And then I was there. I didn't have a bank account, and I didn't have an ID. Then they gave me $1,000, but when I got there, they given me the wrong address, so I had to use some of that money to pay for like a hotel. So I stayed at the hotel, and I wasted like $150 there, right? Then I got back with Steve. Steve, I don't know if this. So I was with Steve, and
Hmm.
I was a declared expressive person, and I was just trying to live in the never end world, the world without Scientology, you know?
Right. And
So
Steve,
yeah, there
you
was
said that he
no
was a declared
period.
suppressive person. Was he also an ex-Scientologist? Oh, yes, you said he was a
Yes,
Scientology parishioner, right? That's right.
he was a millionaire Scientologist who donated millions of dollars, actually millions of dollars, to the Church of Scientology, and he wanted a refund, and they didn't give it to him. And so then he did some things with the local St. Louis Church of Scientology, which they told him that he was called an external influence, they call it, on the local org. So he was being found as this sort of this. They said that he was a sexual predator in regards to the org, in regards to this one person. And he said they never did anything sexually. He just wanted to take her out and stuff. But she was not in the Sea Org. She was just a regular Class 5 org staff member. And so they said that he was externally influencing the org. And so they declared him suppressive persons. And then that way, if he ever tried to to um, sue to get his money back or anything, I think they just wanted to be able to do fair game on him according to their policies.
Of course, yeah, it sounds like Scientology.
Yeah.
But wow, that's interesting. I actually didn't know those parts of your story. So that guy, Steve Edison, did he get declared an SP because he was trying to get his money back, or did he get declared an SP and then he decided to try to get his money back? What did that look like?
Well, there's several viewpoints on these suppressive person declares. This one I didn't know from the inside. I only knew what he told me, and that means that
Okay.
from the outside, it looks like Scientology is saying we don't want you here because you're trying to be a sexual influence on our staff members, thus making them not focus on Scientology. You're a bad influence, and so we're declaring you suppressive person. And you're the person that's holding down this St. Louis org. You're the one that is keeping them suppressed and their statistics low, meaning they're not making enough income. And they call it a pike on a head on a pike. And it's actually there's actually a whole study of L. Ron Hubbard materials that have to do with finding these public suppressive persons. And you look through these files called the dead files inside of Scientology, and you look and you try to correlate all of the people, and then you find out who has the most reports on them, and then you put their head on a pike. And Steve was a head on a pike.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
The dead files, you said, is what those are called? The files that you
Yes.
look for, and the purpose of those is to look through and try to
I can
find
tell you what they
public
are.
Scientologists. Yeah,
That's a
for
really
sure.
good question. Yeah. So if you here, let me pause it actually on this spot right here. Oh. Shoot.
Yeah, and I agree. Crystal Clarity, I
Can you
see
hear
in the
me?
chat, says dead files sounds so scary. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Uh-oh. Sorry about that.
No
Let me
worries.
get this out of there.
There's an aerial view of what's outside Big Blue.
Yes, until I figure out this other situation.
Gotcha.
So the dead files are in that building that has the giant Scientology sign on it.
Okay.
The dead files are a small portion of the overall central files. Central files is all of the hard copy folders and actual manila folders files of every single correspondence and service action for each individual parishioner within the Church of Scientology. They have to be kept digitally, and they have to be kept the folder part. So the dead files is a special section that only security personnel within the Church of Scientology can access. Not all Sea Org members can access this, but I had the ability, because I was in security and because I was also auditing a lot of the staff members while I was in the Sea Org, which is a security matter, especially when they wanted to leave or they wanted to unalive themselves or whatnot, pregnancies. Then I had access to the dead file. I could make lists of everyone that's in the dead file. Everyone that's in the dead file means that anyone that has ever written anything that is negative about Scientology to the church. So they have to actually write something to the Church of Scientology, and then that puts them in the dead file.
So I'm curious about somebody. What about somebody like Leah Remini, who was writing knowledge reports about Tom Cruise and David Miscavige? Would that kind of thing get her?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Oh, you nailed that shit. Yes. Listen.
Did you happen to see her name on the dead files when you were in security?
Me personally, what happened was I only knew about it because of what happened with my friend Huckleberry Taylor. I didn't know that Leah Remini. I knew that there was a situation. At the time, I was the staff section officer and I was taking care of staff members. So I didn't hear much about public information, except for on the down low or between, from other staff members that were my friends. And in this case, Huck Taylor, he was Vicky Marshall's supervisor, and Leah Remini is Vicky Marshall's
Vicky's
daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was also Vicky Marshall's supervisor. I was her theory supervisor on the St. Hill Special Briefing course, which is like a super big course. This was earlier in the years. But I'm talking about 2012, 2013 right now. And
Gotcha.
so I found out about Huck. Huck, so Huck basically got raked over the coals. You know, he was given pretty serious confessionals, and for many daily, he had to have confessionals daily. Plus, every single confessional had to have a knowledge report written on it, and he had to be seen by the master at arms regarding whatever came up in that session every single day. And all of his sessions were being monitored by Religious Technology Center. So something's going on when Huck and Vicky are in it. There's something to do with Huck and Vicky. There was like an ARC break. That's all I know. I don't know what it was regarding.
Gotcha. And the term you used, ARC break, I'm still learning
Oh,
some of my Scientology terms. Is that so? ARC is affinity reality connection. Is that right?
sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to get this. There. How's that, everyone? Is that better? Okay. So ARC break is affinity reality communication.
Communication. Got it.
And okay, now what he's saying here with this ARC thing is that these words have to do with the theta universe in Scientology. So when you have and something that disrupts your good energy or your theta, they call it, then you have an ARC break. And now you can have an ARC broken public. Now that's a worse, a really bad situation where the person is so upset that they want to leave, or they want a refund, or they don't want to come back, or they don't continue their Scientology service. That is an ARC broken public. So not only have they had this upset in their theta universe, but also because of something that happened in Scientology, and in L. Ron Hubbard says that the thing that happened in Scientology that was caused the ARC break was non-standard Scientology. He's saying that it was somebody's fault who did something wrong, and that person or that wrong Scientology is to blame for this ARC broken public. And these
Gotcha.
ARC broken public can sometimes end up in the dead file. So I used to I didn't never minded calling the dead file to try to sell them materials, because I dealt with ARC broken public all the time when I was in security in like 2000 to 2003. And then later on, I was able to access all the dead file, and they have all these like ARC broken public in there. I hope, does that answer? Can you explain to me back what's that mean to you?
So ARC, as you said, is affinity reality and communication, and an ARC break refers to the theta universe, meaning the spiritual universe, as opposed to the physical universe, or messed universe, as I think it's called in Scientology, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so an ARC break
Not
means that.
spiritual universe, though. I want to make sure that's clear. I know I'm not checking you out, Jacob, but my Scientology is fucking kicking in big time here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm like splicing words. People around me all the time say that. Go ahead.
No, yeah, don't worry about it. I feel like I kind of sometimes do the same thing when I'm
Okay, cool.
when I'm talking to friends who I've met in this movement. But so an ARC broken public refers to somebody who has some kind of an upset or some kind of a negative situation, which Scientology would reason is the cause or the effect of Scientology being misapplied. Is that
Right? Exactly.
okay?
Yes. So
And I've
that is
found that.
different than a suppressive person, though.
So someone
See,
who's
now the
ARC broken is still a Scientologist. They just have some steps, action steps, or ethics program, or something that they have to go through to get back in good graces, back in good standing.
Yes, exactly.
Laura's in here. Hi, Laura.
Yeah.
It feels
Oh,
like
this is funny too. Scientology time. Fuck, that's funny.
Scientology. Yeah, that'd be a good
So yeah,
good theme for your channel. I like it. But that sounds pretty consistent with other practices in Scientology as far as if something is going wrong with you or if something bad happens to you, Scientology will reason that it's something that you did. Or if you don't get the end phenomena or the end result that you're supposed to get at the end of a Scientology course or a Scientology auditing session, then that's because you did something wrong, not because Scientology just doesn't work. That's generally the reasoning that's applied, right?
No, not at
Oh, no.
first. See, at
Got it.
first, this is the stages. At first, it's never about what the person. It's never about what if something goes wrong in Scientology with the person, like let's say they're getting auditing and they get sick, for example, or they contract an STD. Now, in the Scientology building, we would go through their folder and find the way that the technology was not applied correctly to the person. And that's the thing that caused them to have this sickness. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's this at first it's what are the errors of Scientology being applied. Then once the errors of a Scientology are fixed and the person is getting more auditing and it still doesn't work, then we need to look at the other two reasons, which are that they are connected to a suppressive person or they are a suppressive person. Okay,
So
that
at
is
that
where
point,
they become a victim.
I see. So at that point that you were talking about, if somebody comes in and they're sick, at that point would they be considered PTS? Or not necessarily yet at that point.
What was it?
I was asking if they would be considered PTS at that point when they come in and they're sick, or would that not come up until after they've gone through to determine if Scientology was misapplied or something? Or is that a confusing question? You got it.
No, because there's such a thing as a program for a person for multiple sessions. So you're going from one point to another point, and you've got to fix a bunch of things first. Or you could have like very specific targeted actions within one session. You've got a specific set of actions for that one session. So in that one session, let's boil it down into one single session where you're like, okay, the person is I'm auditing the person, and the person says, I say to the person, have you done something that I almost found out about you? And the person says to me, no, I'm not doing anything. You're the one that's bad. I'm not. I'm just great. I'm so awesome. Like nothing. No. And then I would go, okay, well, have you done something that I have almost found out about? And then they're like, I was the victim here. I was the one that somebody punched me in the face. I didn't do anything wrong. And then I would say, well, did you punch someone in the face? Have you ever punched somebody in the face? See, that I would use that to find the withhold of them of the thing that actually is causing them to have this situation where they think they're a victim.
I see. Okay. That's interesting. I find it kind of funny that a number of terms that L. Ron Hubbard has come up with that is just changing the part of speech and the syllable emphasis for words that already exist. I mean, so we've heard the word withhold, and I think of withhold as being a verb in the regular English language, but a withhold has become a noun in Scientology. Same thing with overt, because something can be overt where overt is an adjective, but an overt is a noun. It's a thing in Scientology. And then I think I also heard you using the word upset earlier as a noun as well. It's just an interesting linguistic thing to me, the way that Hubbard created Scientology terms, which were actually just regular English terms, where he changed the emphasis, where what syllable gets the stress and what part of speech the word is.
It's crazy, right? I
Yeah.
fucking loved it. I loved it when I was inside there. I used to love this part of Scientology, the way that he would like manipulate words to make it give you like a whole idea just from this one word, and then that has a whole bunch of words in it. And people would new Sea Org members, when they would come in the org, they didn't understand Scientology. So I'd sit them down and I'd clear up what's the word Scientology was, all the words in the definition, all the words on the bridge, everything like that. They had signed a billion-year contract and they just had no idea or understanding of all these words.
That's funny. What you hearing you say that reminds me of the few interviews that I've seen done by L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige, where generally one of the first questions is, what is Scientology? And they start by just defining the word and looking at the etymology of what Saya, what logos means, where that comes from, without actually going into any of the spiritual beliefs about Scientology or Thetans, past lives, any of that.
That's so true.
You also have to do a lot of looking words up in the dictionary as part of Scientology study, though, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You own a dictionary. You have your own dictionary. You have I used to have an arsenal of dictionaries for different types of people, like foreigners. I'd have a Longman's dictionary for, it would help to explain it better in the definitions. And then I would also use the Webster Third International and the Oxford Dictionary, and all these different dictionaries to help explain these concepts that were in, like, Keeping Scientology Working Series 1, which is the reference that pretty much everyone talks about as being the one where L. Ron Hubbard says, do Scientology or die, there's like no other way. And this particular reference, I was thinking about this last night. Every year, Religious Technology Center would make glossaries and then spot check people in the orgs regarding the words in KSW, Keeping Scientology Working. And if you failed that, you had to look up your word, you had to restudy the reference, and then you had to get another checkout. And people were on this for 6 months or more on the one reference, just being focused and looking up all the words. And everyone used to have like the right definition for one word in this one sentence, and people are like clay demoing the lines and stuff. It's just wow.
Gosh. And Keeping Scientology Working, that's a policy letter that Scientologists have to read at the beginning of every new Scientology course that they start, right?
Yes, if they are starting a course that is not done as an introductory course, like as in the ones you do at the test center, you will not see Keeping Scientology Working in that course reference, but you will see it in more of a bigger organization, like at LA Org, like the one at the blue buildings, but not the one with the lion in front. You will actually, at every course at the one with the lion in front, you will see Keeping Scientology Working in there for sure.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Isn't there a line in Keeping Scientology Working that's something like, we would rather have you dead than incapable?
Yes.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's one
That's the one.
Yep, I've heard that reference before. That was what stuck in my head because the other thing that I think of when I hear Keeping Scientology Working, that's what the Tom Cruise Freedom Medal of Valor speech and award were all about, wasn't it? If I remember correctly,
yes,
I think
you're right. That was the whole KSW evolution.
that
was when the glossaries came out, and we were starting to get spot checked on the reference by Religious Technology Center.
Yeah, I remember sometime in the last couple of years, Aaron Smith-Levin did a video where he played the clip of that Tom Cruise interview that was shown internally before he went on stage to accept his award. And Aaron was given some commentary, but also just kind of translating and explaining what the hell Tom Cruise is talking about. Because he definitely was making references to things that people unfamiliar with Scientology would just have no idea what he means. And KSW was something that came up frequently. So that tends to be where my head goes to when I hear any reference to Keeping Scientology Working.
Yeah, only the tigers survive. So remember that thing? So we were talking about how someone is ARC broken.
Yes,
and
that's
then
right.
What's wrong with them is what was done on them that was wrong on their case. Like the standard technology of Scientology, they're ARC broken. Okay, there becomes a point where they go from ARC broken to essentially opposition to the church by publicly attacking the Church of Scientology, leaving publicly, telling other people they aren't a Scientologist. That is a definitely, they become either a PTS type or they become suppressive person declared. And in that case, they get, what happens is it's very internally within the Church of Scientology, it is very hard to declare someone suppressive person. What I mean by that is I've seen people do many bad things, like as Scientologists in the field, as a public Scientologist, and they didn't get declared until many years later. And the whole declare, what happens is all of the information about the person is put into a folder, into like a completed staff work. And this route goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to the RTC representative of that base. In our case, PAC base, Big Blue buildings. Across the street, there was AOLA and they had RTC reps there. So the CSW first has to get looked over in their folder. You have to prove in this CSW to RTC that this person needs to be declared. And it's on you. It's on me. Like if it was me in a smaller church like Asho, in the one with the lion in front of it, then I would be the one putting together this CSW in this file and putting all the tabs with all of the evidence. As part of that, I would show in the case part of the folder that we did try to address the ARC breaks using the repairs of the bad technology that was applied. We have to show that to Religious Technology Center. Once they approve all of that, then they declare the person suppressive person. You know, that you hear about it being through International Justice Chief, but the real true approver is Religious Technology Center. Does that answer? I hope I'm not going on too much.
No, it's making sense, and yeah, it's very interesting to me. I appreciate you clarifying some of that stuff. And yeah, as far as what you were saying about the International Justice Chief, as I understand it, the International Justice Chief is generally the one who sends the letter indicating that somebody has been declared a suppressive with the steps, or at least they're the one that is the point of contact in case somebody who's been declared a suppressive person wants to try to get back into good graces. Their terminal or point of contact would be the International Justice Chief, right?
That is correct. However, there is something called the Continental Justice Chief, and because the International Justice Chief, Mike Ellis, is often very busy with high pressure situations that are happening within the Church of Scientology, then the Continental Justice Chief for each area, or the Flag Land Base Justice Chief, takes care of their suppressive persons, like the ones that are declared. For example, in my case, there's a guy named Richard Valle, Valle. He was the PAC Justice Chief, not the Continental Justice Chief, PAC Justice Chief, and he was just in charge of justice for our base. And when I got declared, he was the one that delivered. He wasn't him personally. It was the person in my org delivered it to me, and then in security, in one of those rooms with the cameras. And then when I left, I was in email contact with him, and I was in phone contact with him as well. And he was the one that he was trying to get me to do the A to E steps that you have to do in order to get back in good standing. And at that time, I was still a Scientologist. When I left there, Jacob, I was still a Scientologist. I just didn't want to be in there anymore. I didn't want to be in the C organization anymore. And they gave me a choice. You could either do the reconditioning program, or you can get declared and be disconnected. And they thought I would probably choose the conditioning program. And I was like, no way, I want to go into oblivion. I'd rather be in oblivion than be inside here doing this work, this stuff they're doing in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then, I left there, and where was I? Sorry, man. Damn.
It's all good. You're just talking about starting to do the A&E steps, or the A to E steps.
Yeah, Richard Valle.
Yes.
So he would call me, and he'd be like, we need you to do this step. And then once I did a step, it would have to be approved not only through him, but through the International Justice Chief.
Gotcha.
Yes. So that was Mike Ellis.
Interesting. So did you ever complete those steps and get back into become a Scientologist in good standing again, or was that kind of the end shortly after that?
No, so step A is where you have to write on a piece of paper, a promissory note, and it says on there that you're a bad person and that you're going to stop doing the bad things. And they want, and so I wrote that, according to their instructions. I had to talk on the phone with Richard Valle because, listen, I wanted to be back in touch with my family. My parents were really important to me. And so I had told them that I was going to get through my A to E and they were not to worry. And it would only take me like 3 years. I told them that, this is when I got declared and I saw them for the last 15 minutes in security. And then I got shipped off to St. Louis. So I'm like doing the A to E. So he's telling me, he's coaching me on what to say and write on this thing. So I wrote it and it got approved. And then he wanted me to notarize it. And I didn't want to fucking notarize it because I know what that means. I'm was born in a cult and I don't know shit, because I was giving all my resumes to my jobs in the Neverend world. I was putting my social security number on there. I didn't know. But when they were telling me notarize it, I was like, I am not notarizing this. This is not true. And then they told me how much I owed them, which was $50,000. They wanted me to pay them $50,000. Big mistake on their part. Why would they have me on a roll? I wrote the thing, they approved it, and then all they have to do is get me to notarize it, then give me the bill. But they told me the bill while they were trying to get me to notarize it. And I was like, no way, I'm never going to pay $50,000. I didn't even have a job yet. And they were on the phone trying to get me to get a credit card so I could buy the basics package, which is $2,400. So I was like, no way, I can't do this. Like, and I didn't have any transportation. I was trying to ride a bike 14 miles to Noodles and Company to learn how to make minimum wage and stuff. So, $50,000 was just no way. I was never going to make that. And so I decided that in order to seal my fate so that I can never do A to E again in this lifetime, I would go on the internet and I would read the OT information. And once I did that, I knew I could never get up the bridge this lifetime and it would be useless. And then at that point, I knew once my parents stopped metabolizing on the E-meter, because you have to have a certain health in your body in order to metabolize this thing on the meter that happens. I knew once they stopped metabolizing, they would be done with Scientology and we could reunite again. And if that was like 15 years, that was cool with me. Yeah. So.
And what is are your parents still in Scientology now? Are they, or did they eventually leave too? I'm sorry, I don't know about that part of your story.
No.
And thanks for the comment, Laura.
So fucked up, Jacob. It gets so fucking much worse. It's all good though. I want to tell you because you're asking. So I read the OT information. I'm disconnected from my parents. I don't talk to them until 2 years ago. A bunch of my never in relatives contact me through Facebook and say, your dad is dying. He's dying of cancer. And so my brother finally gets my phone number. He's my half brother, and he was never in Scientology, but he only grew up for I only knew him for 12 up until I was 12 years old, from 4 to 12, 0 to 12 or something like that. My never-in brother, who was in Los Angeles, he's 48, Jason Repetto. He gets me on the phone, and I'm on the phone with my dad, who's on his deathbed. In 2 weeks, he dies. 2 weeks. He's on his deathbed. He has stage 4 cancer. I tell him, I love you. And I tell my mother, I love you. And they ask, and we chit chat about Scientology a little bit, like what's happening in the world. I was just trying to be friendly with him. And then they said, they asked me, my dad said, so what's happening with your A to E steps, on your suppressive person declare? And I said, I'm not doing that. And I've been talking on Facebook publicly about the Church of Scientology. And he says to me, well, then our communication line just has to remain the same, disconnected. So he disconnects there. And I'm like, okay, well, you are on your deathbed. And some things that you need to know is about how to drop your body. So you need to I asked him, are you even physically capable to drop your body? Do you know how to drop your body? Like, what's going to happen for you and you're so weak right now. You're about to get to the between life implants. Like, what's going to happen for you, dad? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know the assist that you're talking about. I don't know. And I said, well, you need to find out from your CS, your case supervisor. And what he's on the level, he was on OT7 at the time, which is where you're auditing yourself at your home and you're doing, you're telepathically telling the ghosts that are stuck to you to go away. And so he's doing that. And he gets stage 4 cancer in the middle, like a month while into this OT7. He was on the level for a year and he's auditing on it. He gets stage 4 cancer. And then, so we disconnect on the fucking phone. And then he dies 2 weeks later. Everyone around me is like, oh, I'm so sad for you, Lewis. And all I'm like is like, I'm just so glad. I'm so relieved that he is dead. And why am I having this feeling? It's just, I was just happy. Like, finally, he's dead. And I don't have to worry about John Repetto being a problem for me ever again, wanting to get me back into Scientology. Because I knew if I was always telling my girlfriends and ex-girlfriends, if my parents come here, you got to make sure you're with me when they're talking to me, because they know the right things to say to trigger me to believe into Scientology again.
Gosh, yeah, what a situation. The way that Scientology will take people whose family members are sick and use it as an opportunity to just further either weaponize a relationship or use it as an opportunity to try to get somebody back in. It's really a bummer to hear about every time I do.
Yeah,
but you do still have some
I'm
never
pretty
in
happy about
family.
it, though. What's that? I'm pretty happy. I'm so happy about him. And then my mother is being taken care of by my half brother, and I haven't reconnected with her. I just haven't done it. I haven't been like I don't want to. I know she's not doing Scientology. She can't do it. She was disabled, and my brother hates Scientology, and he fucking hates it so bad. And so there's no way she's doing it. And so I'm not worried about her doing it and trying to get me into it. I'm just more worried about the way she talks to me. She's a auditor. She's a class 6 auditor like I am. And she's my mother. So there's a lot of concern there for me. Is she gonna trigger me and make me even more believe into Scientology again? Like stuff like that. I'm like a little worried about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So in that case, is she still a member of the church in good standing then, or is she just doing what she's doing outside of the church? I know you said that your
She
brother
was a
hates
public
Scientology.
parishioner.
Okay.
And my dad was paying for her services. My brother, and after my dad died, my brother ended up telling me that my father opened up $70,000 worth of credit line in my mother's name. So my brother was having to deal with all of this money stuff. Fuck, John.
It's horrible.
Oh my God. So it's just like, what? And you know what? That makes perfect sense to me, because one time when my father inherited $225,000 from his uncle, he gave he just gave 25,000 of that straight to the International Association of Scientologists. It's just like, absolutely, I want to be a crusader. He went from crusader, which is $10,000, all the way up to patron, up to $40,000, because it's like a cumulative system. Once you get that, your name is basically in the magazine forever, because they reprint it over and over. And you were there, you helped. You can feel good about yourself, and maybe you will be accepted onto the OT levels. You have to get an invitation, right?
Right. Gosh. Yeah, and we were talking earlier about all the words that get made up in Scientology. I think that some of those patron names that they make up for the IAS donors are some of the silliest ones that I've heard, like patron gigatorious, patron meritorious.
Platinum meritorious, diamond meritorious, gold gold meritorious. Gold meritorious is $1 million. I think platinum is 2.5.
And
then
Tom Cruise is platinum meritorious, right?
No, he's Excalibur. Yeah,
Okay.
it's 25 million Excalibur.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness.
But there's the one guy, the Duggins. They're 300 million. So I don't know what they've invented, what kind of name they have for that one.
My gosh. Well, the other big donor names that I can remember from, I want to say that it was within the last year, there was a big event in Los Angeles that Tony Ortega was outside for part of while it was happening. I know that Tom Cummins was one that he brought up as one of the big donors that was featured on the cover for this event. And then there was also the Phabos factor. I'm not remembering what their first names are, but the Mr. and Mrs. Phabos were another rich Scientologist family that comes to mind when I think of who are those big donors that have given
that sounds
tens
familiar.
of millions of dollars.
I don't know who it is, because one thing that I was not very good at was getting money from people for nothing. And
well, you said that you worked in security, right?
Yeah, I worked in security, and from 2000 to 2003, 1999. And then but I'll be specific with you, Jacob, because you probably know what I'm talking about. And I don't have to be shy. 1999, October, I get off the Estates Project Force. I signed the contract and I joined the Sea Org August 12th, 1999. I remember that because that's Sea Org Day celebration.
Okay.
I get off the Estates Project Force 3 months later. Into security, the actual physical security force, for like 3 or 4 months. There I learn about all the camera systems. I walk around, I have a baton in my I carry a baton around. It's to symbolize ethics presence. It's a wooden stick with some metal caps on it. And then I learned about all the security cameras on the base, where they are, how they have it set up inside control with the different TV screens and all the biking and stuff that goes on. And what I was recruited there to be in security for was to become a confessional person, to listen to confessionals of staff members. And I got in trouble in like December, and I got sent out of security, the physical security, which is a higher confidentiality level, because it's sort of like in the government, where there's different levels of confidentiality. So I went from a higher organizational confidentiality to a much lower one, like lowest one on the totem pole as far as the Sea Org member goes. That is an Ash O'Day. That's the one with the training lion in the front. It's got a big metal lion. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they're supposed to only train and audit certain levels of the bridge, the grade chart. And they mostly train auditors there. So when I went there, I went into their Division 1, which is the security division that takes care of all the security for that specific building and that 125 staff members. So yes, I spent my time in security the whole time, but that's the separation. I went from physical security to actual in an org taking care of security. And at first I took care of all the security flaps for public, and I didn't do anything with staff. And then I went to flag and got super trained, came back, it was like a whole thing. So what were you going to ask about security? I went
Well,
off
I think that the reason I originally brought it up is because you had mentioned that you weren't the best at getting money, and I remember thinking, oh, that wouldn't be I wouldn't have expected that somebody in security would be generally tasked with getting money from parishioners. Of course, some different positions like a reg whose job is to make sales or generate money. I would certainly expect them to be tasked with getting money from parishioners, but I just wouldn't have necessarily expected that from somebody working in security.
However, you're right. But remember that dead file I told you about? The
Yes.
International Justice Chief and the Continental Justice Chief, they all have quotas too to make money. They need to sell materials. And so they would go to these dead files and the suppressive person lists and put pressure on those people to get them to buy materials and things. And so there are a lot of these justice people and people in the security divisions that are really good at selling materials, and they would be pushed. There was a certain point in about 2006-7 when the basics were released. The basic book and lectures, $2,400, that every single organization and division had to put a part of their people on selling them full time. And within the division of security, there were really good salesmen, but I wasn't one of them.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying. That makes sense.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I also see Laura said in the chat. Yeah. I was gonna mention that one as well. I'm not sure which video. Was you talking about the video that you were showing at the beginning?
Let me get it going. Tell us about you while I get this going in the background.
Tell us about me.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you? Where did you grow up? How old are you? What are you doing now? Are you in college? Are you done with college?
I'm 24 years old, and actually, I was laughing a little bit as you were starting to talk about when you finished up the Estates Project Force. I think you mentioned it was August of 1999. Though I was born in September of 1999, just a month later. I grew up in California, born in Northern California and raised in Southern California, and I'm living in Southern California now. I've got a bachelor's degree in English with a minor in film and television from UCLA. I've got a couple of years of teaching experience. I previously taught special education up in the Bay Area for 2 years, and now I'm back down in Orange County, California, working as a substitute teacher. And I've been paying attention to Scientology and what goes on within the church for a couple of years. That started, I think it was during COVID, probably fall of 2020, when Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath was put on Netflix, that I got really into that series. And the more that I watched, the more that I realized how much information was out there to continue to learn. So I read Leah Remini's book. I read Tony Ortega's book about Paulette Cooper. I started reading Mike and Tony's blogs almost daily. And since I've gotten into it, even more YouTube channels have popped up that have made it so now there's no shortage of content about Scientology and to expose Scientology's abuses. And it's also interesting to me that at this point, I feel like I just know, I know enough that I can't just stop paying attention to everything that's going on. And it's only been within the last couple of months that I've started to take some degree of action myself. I know I've protested with Eat Predators and Alexa Nicholas outside of Scientology facilities in LA a couple of times. I was outside of the Shrine last Saturday, and I'm stoked to be streaming and talking about Scientology now too.
That's freaking awesome. Fun. So what you did teaching?
That's right. Yeah.
Teaching now.
So I was a full-time teacher the last 2 years up in the Bay Area. Now I'm just working part-time as a substitute teacher. And I'm also taking classes at the local community college that I started at, that I went to between 2017 and 2019, not necessarily pursuing another degree, but just taking classes that I'm interested in, like video production, radio broadcasting, audio production, television and film script writing. That was my schedule for this semester, at least. Wednesday was actually the last day of the semester. So now I've got a couple of weeks of winter break before I got to get back into the swing of things. But hoping that I can use that time to start going through or doing what I need to do to be able to stream better. I mean, I know tonight I was talking about the fact that I need to get some lights doing streaming in my bedroom when the sun is down.
It looks better when you're up close, though. I think maybe it's this view here that looks dark. All right.
And I see Crystal in the chat said, I bet you make an awesome teacher. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that. We want to get the video going now. You got it pulled up?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
See if I can get a different format.
This definitely looks familiar from when we were walking around.
Yeah.
Walking around these blocks for that September protest that Alexa put on with Eat Predators. And a Christmas wreath there.
Yeah.
Is that pretty typical for Scientology to kind of decorate with Christmas tropes, those kinds of things around the Christmas time?
I never noticed. I was never outside, to be honest with you. I was always inside, like auditing people, staff members. And
Gotcha.
I almost never went outside. The only time I really went outside was to go have a smoke break. And I started smoking when I was 22. And I didn't stop until about 4 years until I left the C organization. I ended up getting some hypnosis. And that nailed it. That was freaking good.
Yeah. Was that hypnosis from somebody in Scientology or from somebody outside?
Outside, when I was out in the never-end world, I paid somebody $50. I went to this hotel and it was a group of people and it took like 20 minutes. It feels like when you're driving and there's like a hypnosis going on. Or it feels like when you're driving, it's like road hypnosis. You can sort of remember what happened, but you're like, who was driving the last 5 minutes? Kind of feeling.
Gotcha. So in the video where we see right now, those cars that are parked next to the building, would those be parishioner cars most likely, or would those be?
Can you see my mouse?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, then I'll go in there. That'd be a lot easier. Then I can control it. Okay. Up. Oh, come on. Okay. So this right here is the driveway that leads to the Continental Liaison Office is right here. What's in that is actually housed where Gavin Potter works. He does all of the money getting from the public parishioners, celebrities, and big donors as far as the free wins. So he gets money for the free wins, and every week he makes like $50,000. That's why he's so valuable, in my understanding. That's what his public relations is within the Sea Org, is that he is so valuable because he makes so much money for the free wins. And in this org right here is where they have that his office and also some management offices there. And in this right here is the advanced organization. That's where they do all the solo auditing, telepathic clearing of the ghosts from their bodies. And so these cars right here, they're just parked there. I think the reason why they're parked there is so that, because there's probably a property line here and they want to make sure that that this was like a heavily guarded area. There's cameras up in here. There's an underground access under here.
Underground access. I don't think I realized that that was a thing here. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
so it actually goes across the street here as well.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, it's a tunnel.
I did not know that. That's news
Yeah.
to me.
When the protesters used to come out like anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was no big deal. We would just shut the blinds and walk underneath the street. But not everyone can walk underneath the street. Not everyone is allowed to, because that pathway is meant for security reasons and religious technology center as like an emergency. They started clearing it out and making it bigger because it had like a bunch of stuff in it. The hallway did. They had a bunch of books stored in it that they were selling. And you could still walk through it and everything. But yeah, it was mainly for the Religious Technology Center, but it's probably a highway now with so many more protesters going on. Now,
Gotcha.
because I was one of the people that was working in the security area until 2003, I started to, I don't know where I was going with that. I got distracted by all the food here.
I know. I was looking at the menu too. So you pointed out where Gavin Potter's office was. Do you think that since he's been named as a defendant in the Jane Doe v. Scientology lawsuit, that he's been relocated to a different Scientology location?
I think he was probably put on a ship.
Gotcha.
Isn't it like maritime law where you can't arrest somebody there or something like that? I don't know. What do you know anything about that kind of thing?
I'm not enough of an expert on whether or not somebody can be arrested, but I know that when you're outside of the confines of any nation, you're not bound by the laws of that nation. Well, to be honest, I don't want to speak about it like I'm a legal expert. I definitely have more to learn on that front, but I'm sure
Here's
that
what I do know.
Yeah.
Here's what I do know. Every year, Gavin had to go to the ship for a refresher. It's called a refresher. And it wasn't because he was on OT7. There's something on OT7 you do where you have to go back to Florida every 6 months. That's called a refresher. This is something different. This is where you go to the free winds and you get some auditing because you're a registrar and you're really important. And registrars need special auditing on them to refresh them and to revitalize their purpose. And every year he was sent to the ship for this refresher thing. And the reason why I know is because I was auditing him for a time in 2011. He had I was auditing in my org. I was taking care of the staff in my org. And then he was in a different org and a whole nother confidential echelon I wasn't even part of. But he needed a special action that only certain people could do. And I was one of those people because I was hella trained on the auditing stuff. So then I ended up auditing him for about 40 hours. And in there, I found out this information about how he goes to the ship and stuff every single year. Hope that answers something.
No, totally. No, that does make sense. I think that part of why I was curious about if he would have been likely to have been relocated is because another person who has come up in his lawsuit, the lawsuit that's been filed against him, is Julian Swartz. And Julian Swartz has been exposed a lot in the last couple of years. His name was mentioned a lot in the Danny Masterson criminal trial as somebody who's participated in cover-up of a lot of SA. And I've heard Leah Remini and Mike Rinder talk on their podcast over the last couple of years about the fact that since his name has started to come up more and more in legal documents, one sec, just dropped my AirPod. Since his name has started to come up more and more, he's been seen less and less. And I assume that means that he's been moved to another Scientology location and that he may not be posted where he typically was seen in LA. And I'm wondering if the same thing is likely to be going on with Gavin Potter now that he's a defendant in that lawsuit. And yeah, if you think that it's likely that he's been sent to the ship and is just staying there, that sounds like it would make. That sounds like it would track.
Yeah, I think he was probably sent to the ship, and or he blew, and that's a high likely because he has a lot of money,
That would
and
be interesting.
because of all the commissions that he makes from the regging. So it's part of these people that make a lot of money by getting money from Scientologists and stuff are perks, like $200 extra in addition to your $40 or things like that. But Gavin was really smart. He would sell lots of materials and he would take advantage of all the different perks. He had money. He had his own car, his own insurance. I think he even had a child as well that he paid. I don't know if he paid child support on her or not. Don't know.
Gosh, that's.
So where are we at
Well,
here? We're at,
oh yeah,
we'll
where are we?
pause it there. So this right here, this part where the arrow is a
Yeah.
walkway. And that is actually a hotspot for people who can see the protesters outside. And when I say they can see the protesters outside, right? That's a good thing. They can see what's written on the signs. Because when I was in ASHO and I worked in security or just as a Sea Org member, and if I saw one of those, I immediately went on the phone to security and I called and reported it because I didn't want other people to get harmed by this, and I wanted security to know. And I was trying to be a hero, a good person, and but I would still look out the window and I would see the signs that said Xenu and IRS David Miscavige and other weird words that were on the protest. I usually thought they were just silly. I didn't understand them, but um the Xenu ones definitely made you think. Because, like, what is Xenu? I hadn't seen the South Park episode until years later. I don't even think I saw it until 6 or 7 years until after I left the Sea organization. Because
Gotcha.
I read the materials on the OT data on the internet, and because I'm trained, it was easy for me to understand the way Ellen Hubbard wrote about the OT materials. I didn't need to watch the cartoon, about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll keep going with this video. Go ahead, sir. There we
I was
go.
also just curious. Was it shocking to you when you read the OT3 materials? Like, what was your kind of reaction?
Well, at first, I didn't understand it. I'll be honest with you. I was like, I don't get this. I don't get what the connection is here. And I couldn't draw a line. And it stumped me for a long time. And when I saw Aaron Smith-Levin a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago in Florida, I was on vacation and I met him and we talked and we hung out at a cigar place.
Yeah.
I asked him about the OT levels and he said it's just made up, man. It's just all made up. But I was still stuck on it. So I just kept thinking about it and um I realized the connection though. I realize it now between the implants on the L. Ron Hubbard, um, at first, um, he's saying you can clear your reactive mind using auditing materials. So this is the place that I worked at.
Oh,
Right
okay.
here.
Gotcha.
So he's saying you can clear your reactive mind and using the book 1 auditing, which is only has to do with this lifetime unconscious incidents. You can go clear using book 1 auditing. Then he went into this thing called goals problem masses. Goals problem masses is what you learn on the St. Hill special briefing course that is delivered at this organization. This is their specialty. Is this organization with the lion. So St. Hill special briefing course. It is A through P. Each level is about 3 weeks. Level O takes about 6 months. Level P takes about 2 weeks. So the course was taking public parishioners between 4 years, between 4 years and 6 years to finish it. You know, that's full time, meaning they're 40 hours a week at least. I did it in part-time study, and I wasn't doing it full time, and I was a Sea Org member. I was staying up late and coming in early and going in during my lunchtime and all this stuff to do this course, because you can learn all these skills that you can't learn anywhere else. On the course, it deals with these things called the goals problem mass. Now, what's really interesting about this is that he's saying that on the whole track, you've lived thousands and thousands of lifetimes. You can clear a whole bunch of lifetimes by auditing one of these goals problem masses. And all you have to do is read these words that he has discovered that create up this goals problem mass. And the goals problem mass is made of just simply, in one lifetime, you were trying to play soccer. And then in your next lifetime, you were trying to not play soccer. And then your next lifetime, you were the opposite of not playing soccer, which is you were trying to get a rug burn. And it just sort of like slightly alters, but over these lifetimes, these would accumulate all of this mass. And he's saying that these are not even the main things that are causing all of your aberrations in this lifetime. He is saying what's even worse than that are these implants that people are receiving. And on the Scientology special briefing course, he talks about implants so much, like 300 tapes, and each tape is 90 minutes worth about the implants. And he describes the implants in detail, and he does describe like the between life implant, which is the whole thing about this Scientology, which is that this is a prison planet and your mind is getting erased by this between life implant. And he's describing this on the Scientology special briefing course and how to audit these implants. Now, he gets more into other people's other flows between the within the implant, and the things that the implants are suggesting and pushing on people. And in the implants, it's like one of the implants is making you a body. You want to be in a body. You want to live as a body. You are stuck in a body. You like to eat. You like to sleep. These are all implants. This is all part of one implant to implant you into being a body. And so that's where the idea comes from in Scientology. Oh, you're not a body. You're not a body. And the psychiatrists are saying you're a body. You're a body, because and the implanters are the psychiatrists, and they're implanting you to be a body. And so then I was like, so this does draw a connection to the body Thetans, because what happened was I don't know if this makes any sense to anyone else, but to me, it's like when you have people who are like ghost hunters, and there are ghosts stuck in places, and there's ghosts haunting a mansion and stuff. I think of that as the body Thetans, and that's what Scientology is now auditing, are these body Thetans. And of course, now I see why all of the people come off the body Thetan auditing, and they're like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. I have a cognition that I am so much freer now because I don't have this body Thetan stuck to me, this ghost, or they have the power to keep the body Thetan with them and keep them safe. It depends on how you look at it, I suppose. Now, here's the thing about this is that Xeno thing, that's only one implant. It's only one implant. And that was only 76 trillion years ago. On the Scientology special briefing course, you learn about implants that are way earlier than that. Way earlier. So this whole thing about the Xenu thing being so weird and stuff, it's not actually that weird if you think of it as just another implant that L. Ron Hubbard talks about. You're already used to implants. And so this Xenu thing is just another implant that happened. And, you know, and then, so I think, yeah, on the OT8, so you get rid of all your body Thetans through OT7, and then on OT8, he says, well, now you need to look back at all of your previous auditing and decide, oh, well, is all of this from my body Thetans, or is it really from me? And then you decide, well, it's all from my body Thetans. I'm really me. And you decide who you really are because you no longer have your body Thetans to tell you who you are, influencing you, and all these sort of things. And that's when you decide you become able to be, you are free because you're not being held down by the body Thetans anymore.
Couple $100,000 to learn that you are yourself.
Yeah, really, right? Oh my God. This
No, but
line has been
thank you for clarifying that and explaining it in that level of detail. That definitely clears some things up for me. I feel like I was kind of under the impression that most Scientologists who make it to OT3 feel like they have a good idea of what they're learning. Everything's making sense up until that point. And then once they read the OT3 story, then they're kind of like, what? But the way that you described it with all of the implants that you already learned about before that, that actually, I feel like makes it make a little bit more sense. So yeah, thank you for sharing all that.
absolutely. And this whole implant thing is really directly connected to the psychiatry thing, because in all of the implant references is him saying psychiatry is the one doing these implants. And implants can be something that you see in society currently, he's saying, like within TV, getting people hooked on looking at images on a television. That's a type of implant. He's saying these fragrances that are the chemicals that are being put into your shampoo and things like that, that's a psychiatric influence. That's part of this implant to keep you loving the body and the objective universe, to keep you addicted to it, is what he's saying. This is part of the implant. So Scientologists believe that you're being implanted by the media, YouTube. Like, this is part of the implant, is this YouTube. People are looking and getting addicted and talking, and it's just, what
So
the
you mentioned
fuck?
that all of these implants, they're all connected to psychiatry. So Scientologists are taught that psychiatrists are behind planting all of these memories that people have from billions, trillions of
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah, what I
That
mean by
actually makes
that
me. Yeah, go ahead.
is they actually, not only are they behind it, but they're the ones that made it up. See, they're the ones that created implants to keep people in meat bodies, to keep people thinking that they need sex to procreate, that they need to procreate. That is a part of an implant, to be in the body.
It makes me laugh to hear all of this because I think back to the interview that Tom Cruise did with Matt Lauer, where
Yeah,
they were talking about the fact that Brooke Shields had taken psychiatric medication for postpartum depression, and Tom Cruise is talking about how, oh, you don't know the
that's an
history of
implant.
psychiatry, and I do. And knowing that this is the history of psychiatry that he knows, that psychiatrists have been behind these implanting of memories for billions and trillions of years, just makes me laugh to know that added layer of
Yes.
context.
I was talking to Crystal Clarity last night. We were watching Lost. Have you seen that show?
I have not. I've heard from a lot
Okay,
of
I
people
haven't
that it's
either.
really interesting, and then the end is disappointing. So I never got into it, but go on.
Spoiler alert. I haven't watched it either. And she explained it to me. We were watching one episode. She explained to me the version of Lost that she understands, which is that they they die in this plane crash, and they land there, and but they're all living there, and it's actually purgatory. And once they finally right the wrong that they did on Earth or whatever, then they die in the little lost land, in the purgatory land, and then go back to heaven or wherever the good place is. So here's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
In Scientology, the implant in the between lives implant, one of the first things they do on you, the psychiatrist, is they give you a false death. And I was saying in this show, it's so crazy. It's just like Scientology, because in the show, they're saying you died in this plane crash and you're in purgatory, but if you in the purgatory, you then die a different way and then you go to heaven. That is a false death. So I just had to say that randomly. But these implants, seriously, they're the between lives in thing, but the between lives implants thing used to be where each Thetan, when they died, they would go to Jupiter or another planet, wherever the implant station was. And then they get re-implanted. They'd have a screen of back and forth energy or an electrical pain screen put on them. They're them as a Thetan. And then they would get the false death. Then they would get a bunch of pictures, and then they'd get the same suggestions of the body. Like, you're a body, you want to eat, you want to have sex, you want to have all these things. And then it would send you back to Earth to be implanted into a new body.
That's
now,
yeah,
but
go
now,
ahead.
after the Sale Special Briefing, during the Sale Special Briefing course, he mentions that that is no longer the case. People are not going off this planet. They're stuck here. And what happens when they die is, because they were in this cycle for so long, where they were going to this implant station, getting implanted, coming back, they're doing it themselves. The person themselves is implanting themselves to erase their own memories. And you can prevent this with Scientology, so that they don't implant their own self. It's not on auto. He's saying it's on automatic. What's
Gotcha.
this?
Well, the flower is stuck in an implant.
Oh, what's this? Yes, Ghostbusters.
It's something weird, and it don't look good. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters.
I'll play
Can't
this
see the
here.
Ghostbusters in the comment there without singing the theme song in my head. Sebastian, Angel, and Lurch much read the signs. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if one day they do wake up and decide to leave. That's referring to the people who Streets LA and his people tend to talk to. I think Sebastian and Angel are real names. Lurch is a nickname, if I'm not mistaken.
Sebastian Angel Lurch must read the signs. Yeah.
Because I know they do like to come up with nicknames for some of the people
See,
they
there's
talk
no
to.
free time. We must engage with them during work and free time.
But there is no free time.
Yeah, I don't know where that comment is. I have to. Oh, there it is. Oh,
Yeah, because I know that Sebastian and Angel are a couple of the guys that tend to be out in front of the recruitment center on. Is it Hollywood Boulevard
oh
where that
yeah.
recruitment center is?
That's the
Yeah,
test
yeah.
center. Yeah, they call it the test
Okay.
center. So the reason they call it the test center, because L. Ron Hubbard's strategy is to do Oxford capacity analysis tests on people, and then use that to find their ruin, and then get them to buy their first service. I used to be pretty good at this test center deal. I would use the e-meter. I'd have it out on the table, and then I would just try to sell people Dianetics books. I used to love doing e-meter stuff with Never Ends. That was fun.
Were those like stress test type?
Yeah, stress test, but I'd take it
Okay.
further. Yeah, I'd be like, think of a problem, and I'd say, think of something else, and then come back to it, and you'll see the same read on the e-meter, those kinds of things.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
So this
Yeah,
is
I've never
LA
held an
org.
e-meter.
LA
Okay.
org right here. And now this is the owner of the test center.
Got it.
So
Okay.
the test center is just Div 6 portion of this org. And the test center is only deals with Div 6. Now here's what I think. The test center doesn't make any money. Those courses cost barely anything, $10, $20. I think they're just doing it because Ellen Hubbard says to do it. It doesn't make any money. It doesn't really get anyone. It probably gets people who, I don't know. I don't know of anyone that's been recruited actually into the Sea Org from the test center. And I've never seen anyone in my org as a public parishioner as a result of the test center, then LA org, then into my org. Because my org didn't deliver to raw public. We call them raw public. And LA org dealt with raw public. But I happened to be a supervisor. I used to train people on how to audit brand new people. And I trained people in my org, the one with the training line on it. And so then I'd have to every now and then go to a test center and help them talk to Neverins about Scientology and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am curious to know what it's like to hold the e-meter and go through some of the questioning that is involved in a session. I never have done that, but
yeah,
maybe I'll find a way.
You could
we'll see.
Telepathically audit yourself.
Just skip straight to the confidential level, straight to the solo auditing.
Yeah, really. But you don't want to get sick or have your back broken like Ellen Hubbard says happens, because you want to go through each step of the bridge.
Sure, yeah. Don't want to skip any steps and expose myself to anything I'm not spiritually prepared for.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
he's going away from the base now, but he'll come back soon. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I know you said that you never heard of many people who got into Scientology because of the test center or because of the Oxford capacity analysis. I would imagine, and this is kind of just my feeling, but I would imagine that pre-internet, it was probably more likely that people weren't able to know anything about Scientology and were probably more likely to just be vulnerable and get caught up or get interested by something that one of those recruiters might have offered to them. Whereas nowadays, it seems to me like nowadays, there's enough information out there about Scientology that I would imagine the only new people they're getting are probably the children of current Scientologists. And honestly, that was one of the things that really bummed me out when I was outside the shrine. I saw a handful of people leaving as the event was ending, and whenever I saw a couple of families leaving with their kids, and I just remember thinking, gosh, these kids they're born into a Scientology family, so they're attending these events with their families, and this is all they know. That's
absolutely. That's all they know. Yes. And social media for them really doesn't exist. And will never exist, likely.
I actually, this is kind of random, but I wound up on just a little bit of a silly deep dive on my phone on Instagram sometime recently. And I think this started because I was looking at the Scientology Instagram page and looked to see who they were following. And I saw an account for the Delphi schools. And I saw a post where they were featuring, or actually a handful of posts where they were featuring a handful of the recent graduates or upcoming graduates. I can't remember exactly what time of year it was that I looked at this, but there were a handful of, it looked like Scientology kids or seniors in high school that were graduating, young adults. And a lot of them had Clearwater, Florida in their bios. And it looks like there is something of a presence of Scientology has some presence on social media, but yeah, I'm sure that any social media presence that any young Scientologist does have has got to be very safeguarded. They've got to, I'm sure that they're being told which accounts to stay away from or how to spot accounts to not engage with. But it was certainly interesting for me to just wind up on that little deep dive and see what I was seeing there.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that they've convinced. First, you've got to convince the children that okay, if I was an auditor parent, I'd convince my child that he cannot withhold anything in session. So once I've got him willing and wanting to tell me his withholds or her withholds in session or outside, and because that is the right way in Scientology, then they can't withhold that they've done something bad. And so they go, I'm not going to be able to withhold this, through my sessions or my bridge progress. So they don't do it because they're not going to be able to withhold it.
That reminds me, I remember that Leah talked about the fact that when her mom was auditing OT7, she was very careful. She wanted to be very careful about what kinds of conversations she engaged in with Leah, because having to go to Florida every 6 months, she would have to write up and confess to any conversation or interaction she had that was remotely connected to Theta. And so that caused her and everybody else who was on OT7 to just really, really self-censor and self-shelter to keep themselves away from anything that would cause them to have to elongate the process of getting through that level.
Yeah. I mean, you're so conditioned to have to tell everything, and just try not to think about things. So when you go on the internet, and you do see something, you just ignore it, or you've already dead agented it in your mind. When I was in the Sea Org, I used to go on the internet and I wasn't allowed to. And I didn't have a problem seeing any of the suppressive person sites and the information that they were seeing. However, I did not go in there because I did not want to see the OT information, because I was worried that once I saw it, which is what L. Ron Hubbard says, as soon as you see it, you will not be able to go onto the OT levels. So that's the punishment for seeing it. So I'd never wanted to even go into any websites because there could be potentially OT information on them. That was like a big thing for me personally, was the OT information. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to get restimulated. It wasn't that I thought I was going to die if I saw it. It's just that I didn't want to get in trouble and I wanted to go up the bridge. So in order to do that, I did not do it. I did not commit the bad crimes,
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Mark Headley, I know, left the church in 2005 along with his wife Claire, and I think it was that same year that the Trapped in the Closet South Park episode came out. And I know that you were saying that it wasn't, you didn't want to hurt yourself while watching that. You also wanted to make it up the bridge. Mark talked about the fact that he saw that episode, which obviously spells out and animates the OT3 story. And he went to bed that night super nervous that he was going to get really sick. And once he woke up the next morning feeling completely fine, that was a big step for him to realize, okay, so that was BS, that I was going to wake up feeling sick. But it was interesting to me that was such a definitive moment in that sense.
That's true. For me personally, Scientology is like so inside of me that sometimes I'm worried that body Thetans are going to take me over or going to kick me out of my body. Or, when I'm getting kind of paranoid, I'll be like, oh God, is this a real thing? Is Scientology real? I hope it's not real. Like when I die, I hope I'm just dead. I'm not going to go to the between life places or whatever and get stuck with the body Thetans. And I hope that and then other thoughts like, oh, I hope Scientology isn't sending me bad, evil body Thetans to like get in my head or make me do weird things. Like shit like that happens in my own mind. So yeah, the story is the crazy. That implant story is weird, but I've heard so many weirder implant stories in the materials, even in the basic books and lectures. I would say I've heard much more interesting implants than the Xenu implant. I'd say it's kind of a silly implant, if you ask me.
Well, I've heard a couple of people, I think Mark Headley being one of them, as well as Mike Rinder, mentioned that one of Hubbard's wildest writings was A History of Man. And Mike Rinder, when they were talking about that in one of their live streams, had the book on the bookshelf behind him, and he pulled it down and read, I want to say it was just the opening or so, just maybe the first page or so. And yeah, it sounds like there were some pretty wild writings out there about some of Hubbard's recollections of the past.
Yeah, I loved History of Man when I was inside of it because it always gave me personally information in order to look in my own whole track and give answers. Because one part of like when you're getting auditing, they want you to look at your past lives. And for me, it was hard to find past lives until I started reading more and more information about what could be on my past lives. And History of Man sort of provided like a little bit of a push, like maybe something of in these areas could be in your past lives. And so when I was going in my auditing sessions, that helped me to think about my past lives and how they could be related to these past incidents. So I could see how it's like a sort of a manipulation book. You don't think about it, but he's sort of suggesting it to you, you know?
That is really interesting. Wow. So reading all of the stories that take place over the trillions of years that are documented in there kind of gave you some sort of a groundwork or base for what kinds of memories you could have had in your past lives.
Precisely. When I would talk about my past life implants and incidents, I would bring up psychiatric incidents all the time because, you know, L. Ron Hubbard's saying all these different types of implants with these psychiatry and stuff. That's what I would use. And then it would become real for me because I was like, oh yeah, I believe in that. I believe that happened to me because now I was reading it and feeling good from reading the materials, and then I was applying it to other people, and then seeing them seem to be happier and believing like their life is getting better. And but really it's just all off this sort of suggestion that L. Ron Hubbard's making. And he's making it through these questions. So the questions are like so specific, you know, like um who or what has stopped you from gaining power in the last trillion years? And you make a list, you know, of 5 or 6 whole track items. And then the auditor assesses those items, reads them back to you, and then finds the biggest reading one on the meter. And then the auditor says to you, I'd like to indicate your item is the super psychiatrist from Dark Space Nine. And then you go, oh my God, that's it. I just realized I am not a psychiatrist from Dark Space Nine. I am Louis Repetto and I am powerful. Really, that's how
Wow.
it goes.
Gosh, that's interesting. That a Scientology security guard that he's filming now on the stream
Yes.
there?
That is a security guard. That right there this is Catalina Street right here that we're on. And that's like a
Okay.
parking lot for Church of Scientology, and mostly staff members parking there. And then
Got it.
right there is the horseshoe again. That's Catalina. And he's about to actually walk over to the carpool area, I call it. It's where like the engine room is for when they heat the pipes and things like that. Boiler room. And they have the
Oh,
shredder
okay.
over there and the compactor. In the year 1999, when that big thing where they were scared about Y2K,
Yeah.
they brought in this giant tank of water. It was huge. It was gigantic because they wanted to be prepared just in case the whole world melted down. They put it in this area right here, the carpool area, and the shredding's on the right. And then I spent most of my time when I was leaving the Sea Org for 10 months in that area working on what they call like heavy labor. But I was just mostly just doing labor. Here's a Sea Org member. She is just walking by and not even looking at the person, walking very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if she didn't walk quickly, security would have seen it because there's a camera right where that bush is, and it's a really good camera too. It's not just like a little blink camera or ring camera. So they would have seen it if she had talked to them. And if they had seen her talk to them, they would have written a report and she would have been brought in by her own security in her own division, in her own org, and asked like what happened, why did you stop? Maybe even she would have been put on the e-meter and asked if she was trying to leave the Sea Org or if she had thoughts of leaving, stuff like that.
Yeah, I can't engage with the SPs at all.
Yeah, you really can't. There used to be this local restaurant or like a haircutting place around the corner
Mhm.
here,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they had a phone number in the window. It said if you
Oh, is
want
that the
to
camera that you were
blow,
talking about? Is that the one that he just put the camera on? Was that the camera you were talking about that was right there?
the one that you can see real super far.
So he just put the camera up for a
Oh
second, and
no, that's
it was
not the
one that was
one.
above him. Okay,
The
got it,
one
got it.
is actually right next to that building with the glass windows and doors where the Amazon was parked. They have a camera
Got it.
right there. It's a fat camera. It's like a good ass camera.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I didn't
Mhm.
mean to interrupt. You were in the
This
middle
one
of
right
saying something?
here just watches this little area,
Okay.
on the street, and you can see you across the street as well. There's another camera on the other side, like on that we're walking up to the main street, that can see for miles. You can see for miles. Yeah. So, um, this is security guard. They're just watching and making sure, you know. Um, there's always two people on a security bike, and these people are um constantly working. They almost never get any study time. They never go up the bridge because they're never sessionable, which means when you go in session, you have to have an well rested and well fed. And these people are never are because they're always overworked because there's never enough security guards because you have to be like a special qualification, and that's very hard to find.
Gosh. Yeah, I remember that when we protested outside Big Blue in September, we were consistently seeing the bike follow us from a distance when we would do loops around the building. They would never get up to us close enough to engage in conversation, but they were always kind of moving at about the speed that we were from 20 feet away or so.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. That
Yeah.
is so funny. They will um it's funny. Yeah. Bikers. I never rode on the bike. I never wanted to. But this is funny. What were we talking about? Just this is LA Org Test Center. If
Right
you
on.
stall progress on the bridge, then you technically are a suppressive person, right? No. If you are stalled on the bridge, there's a word in Scientology, it means stalled on the bridge. So Crystal Clarity is not a Scientologist, so she might not know this. Stall is when you're just not moving, like you're not going into the next step. Now, those people are just ARC broken, which means there's something that was done on their case and their auditing or their training that was not standard Scientology, and they're not really moving further. So you have to find them and then find out what their ARC break is by using the e-meter in a session, or you can do it at like their house. I used to do those. I would go out on tour like to other states and stuff and find people who were ARC broken, put them on the meter and do a special assessment, indicate the assessment, and then schedule them to come back to the Church of Scientology. Now, if the person does not make case gain, so if the person gets auditing and he says he's having cognitions or new awarenesses, but really his case is not changing, meaning his tone level or his chronic tone level is not going up the tone scale, then he is considered a suppressive person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
While you were explaining that, I saw William on the stream pointing the camera at that animation underneath the big Scientology sign that said
Yeah.
something like "Curious, find out for yourself."
Back to it.
I wonder, yeah, right there. I'm wondering if that could possibly be what he got busted for sharing content that wasn't his, since he was filming that Scientology graphic there. Do you think that there's any chance that that could be what Scientology was pointing to as far as filming content that or sharing content that wasn't his?
I don't know, because don't they isn't that sign like in tons of videos already? I guess.
Oh, that's a good point. It probably is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably in tons of videos.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think the content is and maybe it's the Winter Wonderland.
That could
Maybe
be
that was a
too.
bunch of content.
Could be.
They had those big gates up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They don't normally
Yeah.
have those gates there.
Yeah, they probably got to be extra careful about who they're letting up now that it's so easy for just anybody to walk up with a camera and live stream their experience.
Yeah. Someone said I should do an interview with Aaron Smith-Levin. I actually worked with Aaron Smith-Levin at ASHO. Well, he
Oh,
was
okay.
a technical secretary. His job was the Division 4 head, and when I knew him, I was in Division 1, which is the security division, and I was working with public on security lines, or like ethics lines. And then I became a supervisor, and I worked for Aaron, sort of. There was
Right
somebody
on.
between us, like a boss. I had 2 bosses before I ever got any orders from Aaron, but we had some good shouting matches, definitely in the hallways of ASHO, and lots of high intense meetings, but most of the meetings are pretty, intense.
Yeah, I was gonna say those kind of screaming matches are really not atypical at all in the Sea Org, are they?
They're very typical. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
common, very common.
Yeah. I remember I saw Aaron do a video. I think it was around the time he first started his YouTube channel. I want to say it was 2015 or so. It was an older video that I watched back recently where he was talking to Mike Rinder, and Aaron mentioned the fact that there's almost a skill that's sought after to some extent in the Sea Org, that you're considered skillful if you're able to intimidate somebody without hitting them or being physical, like just with yelling. And Aaron said that he considered himself an expert in that. if I if I'm remembering his quote correctly, he said something like that. But
To
yeah, I haven't.
intimidate somebody without yelling?
No, without hitting, without physical violence, like relying on yelling,
Oh,
basically.
yeah. The thing about Aaron is Huck and I, he he was never violent. He was just he's just buff, you know.
Mm.
He was really buff in the Sea Org, and nobody there is like buff. We're all just we none of us work out or anything, and
Right,
he was
yeah.
just buff, and so I think people were using that as like, oh yeah, he's so intimidating because his shirt's tight and his muscles are showing. You know.
That's interesting. That's funny that that was something people might say about him back then.
So how's it been for you since the protest?
Been good. I mean, I've pretty much gone back to just living life. I've subbed a couple of days. It was actually finals week this past week at the community college I've been going to, so had a couple of final projects and final exams over the
Oh
last week or
wow.
so. But I mean, other than that, it's been everything normal for the most part. It's been fun to be able to pop into your guys' live streams when you were talking about some of the stuff that we experienced on last Saturday at the outside the shrine, because I know that a couple
Oh
of days
yeah.
later, I want to say it was Monday, I think Laura did a live with Aaron, and that was really good. And Laura,
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
sure if she's still in here, but yeah, that's right. You and I were texting during that, I think, too. But
That's right.
it was, I mean, I was glad to see that Laura got that opportunity to kind of process everything that happened that day with Aaron the way that she did. And I know that she mentioned at the end of the video that I think it was therapeutic to her just to rewatch that video and talk through everything. But I have no doubt that that experience was one that none of us were expecting, and I was glad to be there to support in a way that I could, and I was glad that you gave me the opportunity to be streaming at that moment. But I mean, other than that, it's been a relatively standard week. But yeah, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to get out there last Saturday, and definitely intend to get out there again if and when there is another opportunity.
So what are your parents like? Are they do they know you're involved in this Scientology stuff?
Yeah, and I've watched an episode or two of the Aftermath TV show with them, but it's certainly not something that they've taken nearly as deep of an interest as I have.
Do they like watch you on YouTube?
I've uh I've shared links and shown them. Actually, I haven't shared this link for tonight, but I've shared some of the stuff from the past Eat Predators protests, and
Oh yeah.
because at the second one that we did at the Celebrity Center, I did get to hold the mic a little bit at that one and interview some people, which that was a lot of fun. I got to interview Karen De La Carriere and Laura. Laura was there too. Jeffrey Augustine and Liz Ferris. So it was really cool to be able to, after having seen all of them talk in podcasts and in YouTube videos, where other people are interviewing them, to actually be the one interviewing them there in person. It was a really fun experience. I mean, honestly, that whole second protest, the first one that we did outside of Big Blue, there weren't a ton of people there. There were maybe 10 or so of us total, but I want to say that there were closer to maybe 30 to 40 at the second protest outside Celebrity Center. And of course, there were some elements of that protest that were a little bit scary, in that our security guard, the security guard that Alexa hired to be there for her, was handcuffed and detained for the first hour and a half or so of the protest. Because as soon as they arrived, Scientology called the cops because he had a weapon, and he had a permit to have a weapon, but he didn't have the permit physically on him, and they wouldn't let him go back to his car to get it, at least not for a long while. So that was something that made the protest very eventful right from the start. But setting that aside, just being there with everybody and chanting, power to survivors, and
What's
everything,
Alexa like?
Oh, she's awesome. I've become really good friends with her, and yeah, she's super cool. And she was on a TV show that I watched when I was a kid, Zoe 101, which was made by Dan Schneider. And Dan Schneider made a handful of Nickelodeon shows. He also made Drake and Josh and iCarly and Victorious, which these are all shows that I grew up with. And he has been outed more over the last couple of years as having had creepy and inappropriate behavior on set and around his cast members who were minors at the time. And Alexa was really one of the people who kind of led the charge in speaking out about him and exposing him. And a few years ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, that she organized a protest outside of Nickelodeon, and that's kind of become her thing. So she does Eat Predators.
Yeah,
That
I've
was the
seen
name
a
of
lot of
her.
those videos of her. She exposes a ton of ton of actors. Every single
Mhm.
day she seems like she's exposing somebody.
No, yeah, there's I'm amazed by how many different stories there are to cover. And even in the last couple of weeks, a handful of new lawsuits have come out against, yeah, like high level singers and actors, like big people you'd think of as A-list celebrities, that, yeah, more lawsuits, more allegations. She's in contact with a handful of survivors of some of the people that she exposes on her channel too. And no, yeah, the work that she does, I really admire it. I'm really glad to be able
Yeah,
to
that's
work
freaking
with her in
amazing.
the
It's
capacity
awesome
we
seeing
are.
you on there.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
awesome, man. It's really good. You're like, you've got that Scientology lingo, but you've got the way to explain things. Must be part of your teacher. Do you think it's part of your teacher abilities, or what do you think? How
I
your
think that
skills fit in this?
yeah, my background with education and having gone through the teaching credential program that I went through, I think probably has contributed to my comfort level as far as explaining things to people and breaking things down. And especially um working as a special education teacher, which I was doing for the last couple of years, we definitely had a lot of focus in our credentialing program on uh creating a universal design for learning and designing lesson plans in a way that they can be accessible to all types of learners, and ensuring that you're front loading necessary background information, or depending on what the concept that we might be going over in class on any given day. There's ways to bring in warm-up activities that can activate prior knowledge to ensure that students know what they need to know in order to understand what's going to be taught this day. So I feel like learning about all of that kind of stuff has kind of helped ground me in learning how I can explain high-level complex concepts to people who might not have a lot of background information in the area. So yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate your
exactly.
compliments that I'm
Exactly.
doing a good job.
That's
Thank
a
you.
great way of putting it. High level, complex ideas explained in a way without a lot of background information. Do you know what's happening with the Danny Masterson situation? I heard that was in jail, put in prison, not in prison.
So what I've oh, that's awesome. Crystal clarity. You did preschool for children. That's awesome. That's awesome. Um as far as I did see that Aaron Smith Levin posted a video. Was it yesterday? Either yesterday or maybe 2 days ago. But in the last couple of days, that Judge Olmedo has ordered him to prison. Has recently submitted a new filing that has ordered him to prison forthwith, meaning immediately. And she pointed out in the ruling, in the document, that she also ordered him to be ordered to prison, to sent to prison immediately, in the last memo that she sent. So it sounds like, if he's not there already, yeah, there's me. If he's not there already, then he's the judge wants him there, wants him out of the jail that he's at and going to prison immediately. The other highlight, though, from that document that the judge just submitted, was that one of his guns is still unaccounted for. So this was something that's come up more since his sentencing. His sentencing was September 7th. And since then, there have been a couple of hearings over the last few months having to do with his unaccounted for guns. As I understand it, when he was formally indicted in 2020, he was ordered to turn over all of the weapons that he had. And I believe he had 23 firearms registered to his name. And several of them, I want to say it was 9 or 10, something like that, he did not turn over. And his attorneys said that he did. And it became evident after his sentencing that no, these weapons have not been accounted for. Now, all my understanding is that all but one have been accounted for. And the one that has still not been accounted for is, as Aaron mentioned in the video that he did recently, the same weapon that was involved in Danny Masterson's attack on Jane Doe 1. And
That's right.
Aaron's theory there, he kind of asked his audience, so is it just a coincidence that that's the one weapon that's still unaccounted for, or is he maybe hanging on to that one as a kind of trophy? And it sounded like Aaron was leaning toward the trophy theory there, which is really disgusting.
Yeah, what other reasons would you hold on to a weapon for besides the trophy? What about as evidence? What if it just doesn't exist? Because it doesn't exist, then it's like no body, no murder. Isn't there something like that?
I sort of thought that too. I wondered that myself. Then, since that was the one that was involved, is it possible that he doesn't want to acknowledge that that weapon was ever involved in any encounter that took place at all? So he's just pretending that it doesn't exist. I don't know. It could be, but it just seems like he could be facing so many more years in prison than he was already because of having violated these court orders. And he was already facing 30 years to life for the SA charges that he was convicted of.
Right.
I think that if all of these, if for 9 or 10 firearms, however many exactly it was that it turned out hadn't been turned in when they were supposed to, if he ends up getting more years added onto his sentence for all of those, his odds of ever getting released are very,
True.
very, very slim.
But what if he appeals this based on the Scientology part of this lawsuit, and the Supreme Court says, no, you cannot use the Scientology in this lawsuit, and it needs to be retried? Then because the gun is not accounted for, it can't be used in the new trial. And then as we saw in the very first trial, he got off. He didn't get
That's right. It was a
guilty.
mistrial declared in that first trial.
Yeah.
As far as the appeal, if I'm remembering
Mhm.
correctly, was it yesterday that Aaron posted that video, or was it 2 days ago? Because I think that Aaron said in that video that the deadline for him to file an appeal was it was tomorrow when he said the video. So would that be today if he made it yesterday? I'm gonna check his channel really quick and see
Yeah, go
which
for
day
it.
it was that he uploaded that video.
Go for it.
So
I'll
yeah,
put
it
on
was
something here. Go ahead.
yeah, it looks like it was yesterday. Yesterday, he posted this video. Judge orders Danny
Oh,
Masterson to
okay.
prison immediately. And yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, he said in that video that the deadline for Danny Masterson to file his appeal was tomorrow, meaning today. And I haven't heard anything today about if an appeal has been filed, but that's something that I'm
Mm.
sure that if it does happen, we'll be seeing Aaron, Tony, and the other people who pay attention to all of this stuff talking about it. So it's definitely something that I'll be keeping my eye out for. But
Yeah.
as of now, I haven't heard anything on that front.
Yeah. Can the Church of Scientology, I wonder if they can pull something in this area where they can um, file that, their religion is being misused here inside the courtroom or something, because it is a
Well,
religion and things should be protected.
Well, something like that actually did happen. In the second trial, Scientology attorney Vicky Podboreski sent an email to the district attorney's office. And so the people who she was emailing were essentially the bosses of the prosecuting attorneys in that case. So the prosecuting attorneys in Danny Masterson's criminal trial were Deputy DA Reinhold Mueller and Deputy DA Ariel Anson. And this email sent by Vicky Podboreski to the district attorney's office was essentially complaining that Mueller and Anson were misrepresenting her church and doing a terrible job painting the Church of Scientology in a horribly negative light. But what was remarkable about this email that really turned it into the story that it became is that Vicky Podboreski, for whatever reason, included a link in that email to all of the discovery materials from this criminal case. And that was a big deal because those discovery materials included unredacted information with names and private emails, phone numbers, addresses, information that was not actually revealed publicly in court, that was supposed to just stay between the legal teams, the defense attorneys and the prosecuting attorneys. They have to share discovery materials with each other, but they're not supposed to be sharing it with anybody else. But when Vicky Podboreski sent that email, it became evident that these discovery materials that were not supposed to be shared with anybody who's a non-party in the case were shared with the Church of Scientology. And Judge Olmedo arranged for a hearing to take place after the conclusion of the trial. And what was determined was that it was Danny Masterson's previous counsel that leaked that information. So his attorneys who were
Mm.
representing him in the preliminary hearings were different from his attorneys representing him in the actual trials. So in the trials, his attorneys were
Mm.
Philip Cohen, Karen Goldstein, and Sean Hawley. But in his preliminary hearings, his attorneys were Tom Mesereau and Sharon Applebaum. And it was Tom Mesereau and Sharon Applebaum who showed up to that hearing with attorneys of their own who were representing them. And
Mm.
Judge Olmedo sanctioned them, I believe it was $950 each
Oh yeah.
for
Still.
leaking the materials. Yeah, that they weren't supposed to leak. So I brought all that up because you were saying you wonder if there's anything that Scientology can do to try to get after the court for painting their religion in a negative light. That's what Vicky Podboreski did by trying to report to the DA's bosses. I think was an attempt to do exactly that. And as far as I'm aware, no consequences came of that, or at least on the part of Mueller and Anson. But I mean, it certainly wouldn't shock me at all if there is anything else that Scientology tries to pull to keep themselves from any justice. And I see that comment there from Edie and me. Thank you very much. As far as who I am, I'm just somebody who's been paying attention to this stuff for a couple of years, and I've gotten to know some fellow activists. I see somebody says he's a lawyer there. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe one day. We'll see.
That'd be awesome. Are you trying to go for that? Really? Would you be a lawyer?
I took the LSAT, the law school admissions test, in October, and I'm currently kind of going through the application process to think about potentially starting in this coming fall. Really, the only thing that would hold me back, and no worries, the only thing that would hold me back from going to law school, I think, would be money, because it's definitely not cheap. So if I could get a good scholarship to law school, that I would love to go down that route.
Yeah, maybe you can get some support from one of these companies that are like suing the shit out of Scientology. It can be like, now you understand Scientology. We'll pay for you to get through your school, and then you can help us sue them.
I mean, that would be super awesome. I'll see. I'll continue to go through the process and see what scholarships I can apply for, because I know that there are scholarships out there, but they also tend to be selective, I know. So that's kind of something that I'll be working on over the next 6 months or so. I'll be continuing to take film and television classes at community college, and also working on my law school application. So hopefully in the next 6 months or so, I'll be able to have a better idea of what exactly my next career steps are going to look like. And I see Edie and me asks in there, are you in California? Yes, I am in Southern California, a little south of Los Angeles. I see the comment. Yes, to answer your question, I am single. Certainly wasn't expecting to get that question on the live stream, but here we are. I'm here for it.
Do you like long walks on the beach?
I went for a long walk on the beach today, matter of fact.
You did? Which beach?
That was Salt Creek Beach in Dana Point, California, that I was on today.
Oh, nice. Have you been to the Santa Monica beach?
Oh yeah. When I was going to UCLA, I would there was what they called the Bruin bus, because we were the UCLA Bruins. So I would sometimes take the Bruin bus down to Santa Monica and walk up and down the pier. Yep, you got me. I am blushing. Walk up and down the pier. Oh yeah, I loved going to Santa Monica.
I love the pizza there. Do you like way older women? Oh.
What is the chat becoming tonight? But oh yeah, when I was in LA, Santa Monica, I didn't have a car at the time, so anytime that I was able to either get on the Bruin bus or catch a ride with a friend to go around and explore the city, yeah, it was a fun time. Up until COVID hit, that is. COVID definitely disrupted my college experience, but I still got the degree.
Damn. That's good though. I mean, that's really amazing that you got it through COVID.
Yeah, I had to move back in with my parents and end up taking a lot of classes online, which was surely not the ideal college experience, but we made it through. We got through it.
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna end off here soon.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks again for hosting this. This was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, man. This has been amazing. You're a good interviewer. You're interviewing the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate you texting me and having me on. I would definitely be up for doing this again. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, DJ Leo Miami. And I'm still reading through some of the comments that I'm seeing here from some of the funny comments that we've gotten in the last few minutes. But yeah, I was just saying, I appreciate everybody being in the chat to cheer us on and support us. It was a lot of fun. I love doing this.
It was fun, so much fun. I am just gonna play the Valerie Haney. She's one of the lawsuits against the Church of Scientology, and I've got a little clip for her. I'll play at the end, and then if you stay inside here, Jacob, I can see you and talk to you right after.
Okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
end
I'll
the
stick
stream.
around. I
Yeah.
can stick around for a bit.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
Love you guys. Love everything. Love living this free world and this free life. And